it's really a pleasure for me to come to CLFMA events because, when you're doing research, you're not very sure whether research gets validated or not. But when I'm asked to come and speak and share my views, I take it as a validation for me. So it's actually an honor to come and present my views over here. Last time when I had come, if you all remember last time this year, it was that soya bean record prices, meal record prices, and everybody was like, where did the soya bean go? Because neither the CLFMA audience had had any answer to it, nor did the SOPA, mind you. I mean, it's like, it's like that black box which nobody has idea of what's happening. So that is the problem area that I recognize. But I just want to add that, it's not only essential to capture the supply, but it is equally essential to capture the demand also. And it's the combination of both that gives you a price direction. And so this year's theme, I believe, CLFMA is about, the changing trends and how things are different and are they changing forever. Is the questions that I'm going to present in my presentation, and I will give a view on corn and all that in, I believe, 10 minutes. So let's just start, right? So this is about Samunnati. So detailed information has been given about Samunnati, but I want to give a context. So when I'm talking from the Samunnati platform, basically, it's a FPO-based fintech company, and we've reached out on ground to a lot of FPOs. There are a lot of farmers that are connected, and there is a lot of market linkage and a lot of information that comes from ground. So to me, honestly, in my career of 30 years, this is the first time that I'm going to the ground and actually collecting first-hand information. So it's also a privilege and a kind of adding to my knowledge. So we are just looking at, how things have been. Can I get that hand mic so I can read it? So this you can see that this has been your experience. So as you can see, this has been the scenario recent years, right? So prices started, soya meal started rallying in around month of March, April, and the actually imports were around allowed only in the month of August, and it ended up coming only in the month of September. So basically, that was that period of March, April to September where the supply was depleting very fast, and like nobody had clue of what's happening, and people started looking for alternatives. So you are the people who actually looked into alternatives. My curiosity is how these alternatives have affected the trend of consumption of individual feed ingredients, and are these change going to be permanent, or it was just that stopgap arrangement that the industry made, and people will go back to the old ways. So that is what I have tried to look into it. So we started looking for alternatives, and there were like, a lot of other ingredients used. Interestingly, in 21-22, which is the season which ended yesterday, the soya meal prices continued to remain high. I mean, soya meal was the most expensive meal throughout the season, as you can see in the chart over here. So what experiment was conducted in 2021 actually was carried out in 21-22. So people were still comfortable with the switches that were made in 2021, and they continued with the 21-22. So what this actually tells me is that this substitution of cheaper feed ingredients, which is very popular in feed grains actually, but not so much in the proteins. But we've seen that there's a lot of experimentation has happened by the industry in 21-22 also. So for broilers, the soya meal percentage in feed was reduced to 18 from the 22 to 24% of the norm that is followed by industry. And this is, of course, my knowledge based on interaction with many of you. So, that's the disclaimer. You can correct me if you want. Layer soya meal percentage was, reduced to 8% from the norm of 18%. And the unorganized players, of course, substituted largely. Major replacement ingredients were groundnut DOC, rapeseed, sun meal, DORB, bone meat meal, maize gluten. There were synthetic proteins also that were experimented with. And of course, for country bird, soya meal was completely replaced. I mean, that's kind of, has been a trend that we kind of was, prominent for me at least. So there were these lot of observations that we found out, because this must have impacted the industry some way, either in quality or quantity or performance. So these were some of the information that we gathered, like, some aflatoxin in groundnut meal kind of limited its use, higher usage of DDGS resulted in lower shelf life of eggs. Lysine had no effect on layers, but worked well for the broilers. Then bird excreta actually turned liquid. That was very difficult to cleanliness, maintenance, etc. And of course, the hydration of the bird got impacted because of that. So I'll not get into detail of this because I believe that you have used it. You can see if it has been really the experience. And like I said, I stand corrected if I'm mistaken. What is happening currently? So all of you are experiencing the margin squeeze. This is basically emphasized this only. As you can see, this particular is a CPI chart. As we can see that chicken and broiler poultry prices have touched all-time high in this year. But egg, if you see, has been largely range-bound since last couple of years. And these are the actual prices polled and collected by us. There you can see that since 2018, you are largely range-bound. But whereas the general inflation, because of the crude prices, because of the other raw material prices, because of the wages, a lot of other stuff, the costs have actually galloped in recent years. So clearly what you're feeling the pinch is actually validated by the data. Now the another thing that is coming into picture is the ethanol angle. I think it is one angle that from the use perspective you need to be very familiar with, and while you capture the supply numbers, you need to catch the demand numbers also. These are the projected so far what the capacity has been, grain based, molasses based, and what is the projected or the government target for next till the year 2025. So for this year, if we were to see, I would like you to notice points from here onwards. So current scenario is everybody knows that wheat prices are at all-time high, wheat balance sheet is tight, paddy acreage is lower, and we believe that paddy supply also will be lower. But to correct that, government has actually stopped the exports of broken rice. But nevertheless, the new season 22-23, there is a paddy production is impacted. Bajra, of course, the acreage is very high, but productivity will be impacted because of the weather vagaries. And maize kharif, as you know, is expected to be steady, at least show the acreage shows. But if you consider the quarterly balance sheet or the first half, the kharif, that I'll come to later, the balance sheet tells a very different story. So these are grain-based distilleries that the government has already kind of given permission to, and there is almost a lot of activity happening, very hectic activity happening on the grain-based ethanol production also. The current capacity is actually around 270 crore liters, and it is expected to, we intend to kind of go to, so far 196 projects and capacity to produce 859 crore liter of ethanol per annum has been approved by the government, and the existing is 270 crore. This is the state-wise breakup. So you will see that a lot of areas actually, at least in Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra and Uttar Pradesh, where it will it will kind of compete for grains, and Maharashtra for soybean is also produced. This we have kind of worked out a profitability for ethanol according to the raw material, and we at current prices we continue to feel that broken rice, wheat, and to some extent maize are the only really grains that will break even or make slightly better profits for the grain-based ethanol production. Whereas jawar and bajra, the prices are not good enough. So prices will need to compete actually. So prices will need to fall to the levels which are good enough for grains to be diverted to the ethanol side. So I think that's interesting thing, and one needs to kind of monitor that. There are a lot of global macroeconomic events that will come, that will be hampering the industry world over and the industry in India, I think. A lot of these factors, you must have already heard of it or you are already facing it. The central banks are hiking interest rates and it's not over, it's going to go up only. There's Russia-Ukraine war, there's energy crisis in Europe. So basically the whole world, if you see, there is this Europe, which is faced by war, then there is America, then there is China, there is Russia and Ukraine. Together this world is actually 60% of the global GDP. And if the 60% of the global GDP is under stress, I think we can safely say that the world is going to face a lot of challenges in days to come. Not to mention the weather issues that we are facing. So yeah, let's come to the maize balance sheet. As you can see, this is the 2023 projected balance sheet, right? So this is the year that we've just finished, and you can say that the balance sheet is tightening, and exports is what will make or break the general, price tightening or whatever. But essentially, the next year, 22-23, this of course assumes the Rabi production. So balance sheet is tight, the prices will affect the prices. Some of the factors that are different this year compared to last year and that we need to monitor are that the Q1 balance sheet, which is October, November, December balance sheet, is tightest in 15 years. Clearly the opening stocks are lower and the production is not good enough, and export parity could set in and a small amount of exports may happen. So Q1 is going to be extremely tight. So that is when you need to actually plan at what price you will want to purchase. So traditionally, Kharif prices fall to 14, 15, 16. We believe that that price may not come this season. And if you take only Kharif balance sheet, which is, I have taken from October to March, then you will see that we are the second tightest. There were two other tight years. 15-16 was the drought year and 18-19 was lower production year. So first half is also very tight. So Q1 is second tightest and the first half is probably third tightest. In this balance sheet, the limpy disease is not yet been fully discovered, So while the production has been, the consumption has been scaled back, but the actual impact will only be known. So to end with, I've just given the price outlook based on my understanding and our study of demand and supply. So soya meal, we believe that prices are coming down and prices will kind of, form bottom very soon. There's mustard cake. Mustard cake, the bottoming is over. This season we have seen unseasonal kind of movement. Prices opened very high, so they continue to make season lows. But I think we are very close to the bottoms. Cottonseed oil cake, the production is up by around 9 or 8 or 9%. But in the larger scheme of things, it is still small production. We've seen much better, much bigger cotton and cottonseed production. So while year on year we are higher, but it will not be sufficient. Wheat, everybody knows that the prices are at all-time high and they aren't going to come down very soon, at least not before the new season starts. Bajra, we do feel that the prices should come down. Otherwise, the prices should have collapsed much more, but because all the feed sansar is relatively, higher, that will limit the downside of the bajra prices. And we are at maize, I think 2,000 quintal warehouse delivered, or 2,000 to 1,800 is where we should see the bottom. So mandi is around whatever, 1,600, 1,700, 1,800. I don't think prices will go below 17 to 1,800 mandi, and we'll need to kind of procure, because the balance sheet, the pipelines are empty, the Rabi was not as good as was expected, and the consumption is expected to revive back. So I think that's it. My team member is here, Balambika, with me, and I am here anytime you have any questions. We've also started the subscription. We are doing the crop survey also, but we are doing manual crop survey. So there is always a debate, right, whether the machine learning is better or the human learning is better. So that debate is forever. But we are doing very intense acreage survey, crop survey, and of course we do a lot of demand survey also. I think which is the combination of two is what is required. And I end my presentation here. I thank you all for listening to me very intensely. Thank you very much.